He said, I sit on the school's diversity committee. There's several teachers and administrators involved in that committee. And we were thinking at the beginning of the month, what is a way that we could connect Black History Month and all the wonderful things you guys have been learning about African Americans throughout our nation's history? How can we connect it to our school community? And we thought, well, you know, as particularly Mr. Joseph, because this was mainly his idea, we thought, what an opportunity we have to hear each other's stories, and that the way that we can really learn from one another is to listen to one another and to understand the experiences that people in our community have. And our hope is that this is just a jumping off point for future conversations, not just having to do with African Americans, but with diversity in general, all the different types of people that we have making up our wonderful community at this school. What would you like people who are not African American to understand about being a person of color in this community?
Students?
Just like your people, we're not any different from you. Just because we have darker skin than you doesn't make us different. So as long as you're not rude or not saying rude things to us, we won't have any problem with you, and you won't have any problem with us.
But you might.
Just sometimes the jokes can, jokes are jokes, and I can a lot of kids can take jokes, but sometimes they get too serious and sometimes they have to stop.
Do you have an example of one? Do you have an example of a time of a joke or something that was over the line?
No, I'm good.
Like Nolan said, and it's sort of like what Nolan and Jordan said, we're people too. I know a lot of people have said stuff about African Americans, like in pity, like we've been through like slavery and stuff, but we're people too, you know. So the jokes, like it's not awful, but sometimes it gets over the line, and that's just not cool. So.
Also, quick side note, when people try to pity us, for me at least, it doesn't make me feel any better, just because my whole history isn't just slavery. There's a lot of other things besides that. Just like you guys have a lot of other things other than oppression in your history.
And I think I would like to add also, Mr. Leapson, that, you know, not to be afraid to have the conversation, right? I think that a lot of times people feel that they need to tiptoe around as opposed to, hey, you know, I don't understand this or that. You know, I spoke to one of my students earlier today, and she wasn't aware, you know, she's Asian, that there's an Asian American month. Like, she's like, well, we don't do it. And, you know, but let's have those dialogues and see if we can get some more understanding of how people feel and what's going on.
What I would like people to know is we shouldn't make jokes about anyone's race, not in particular African American, because it could hurt somebody's feelings, and nobody wants that to happen. And we're the same as you. We're pretty much the same as you. We're all people, so treat us how you would treat anybody else.
Also, try not to stereotype us all into one group. It happens a lot. Just don't think that we all think the same way. We're all different people.
Good point. Is there anything else you wanted to?
I want to bring up the point that Jordan said. This is really where I get to that question before, is about the stereotype. So I just want you know, here in this community, they've been treating us pretty well, but I think my biggest concern is a lot of the stereotypes that come, where I have to remind, you know, students and even adults alike, be careful what you see on the news. That's not everybody. And everybody who does things that aren't right, that might be African Americans, that's not my fault, and that's not everybody. Because I know a lot of people say, why do your people keep doing this and your people keep doing that? They say subtle things to me, even as a teacher, as an adult in the community, and I have to remind them, that's not everybody. And every race has done something and end up on the news, but we don't associate that how every last one of them act or does the same thing. So I think that's a good point about the stereotypes.
Guys, do you remember any specific examples of oppression that you've gone through in your life?
specific examples of oppression that you've gone through?
Okay, quick story time. This was when I was in 2nd grade. Yeah, pretty far back. I don't know if this necessarily counts as oppression, but this is definitely one of the things that I've thought about when it comes to experiencing racism in the past. We were doing the school show and I was asked to be the witch because I had darker skin. Yep, that was, still kind of hurts to this day, to be honest, but the person in later years, I used to know them, acknowledged their mistake and apologized, but it is still something that I do think about.